Hello everybody and welcome back. I am Carix and this is the tutorial playthrough for Europa Universalis 4. We are playing as Castile, and of course if you're just joining us, YouTube is weird in terms of recommending things out of order and crazy ways and stuff. This is the third episode. We haven't unpaused the game yet, but we've already looked at our economy, we've looked at our missions, we've looked at our trade situation, we've talked about technologies a little bit, we've talked about some of the different resources in the game. We've also, more importantly, in episode 1, we talked all about our diplomatic ecosystem, so we kind of have a sense of who likes us, who doesn't like us, who is willing to ally us, who's not willing to ally us, and stuff like that. So it might be good to catch the playlist link down below and sort of watch this from the beginning if you're just joining us here. Thanks everybody for being here though. And so looking at Castile, last thing we haven't really talked about, we have this crazy flashing banner here, personal union on monarch death. That's like the worst thing in the world. There's going to be a giant war if our leader dies. Now our leader is 39 years old. Our leader is not we have not converted our leader into a general, which is something you can do. We didn't talk about that, but we can make them into a general. That increases the likelihood that they'll die. So we don't want to do that. We don't want them to die. We want to get an heir first. And we'll probably be able to get an heir by just royal marrying Aragon, royal marrying Navarra, royal marrying Portugal, or just building up more royal marriages will give us a higher increased chance of getting an heir. So that's something we're going to work on because we got rid of Enrique. Enrique is a 000, just a terrible heir, and he was going to take over the country if we didn't get rid of him. So we disinherited Enrique. That cost us a lot of prestige, but the cool thing about prestige is it always tries to fight to be 0. So when you're at negative prestige, it actually goes way up. So it's actually going up at 2.5 per year. So this negative, we're getting a lot of negative modifiers here, just awful stuff. Awful stuff there. That's fine, because after a few years, this will actually start to go up pretty quickly. And then likewise, if you have a lot of positive prestige, it tries to go down. It always tries to find the equilibrium of 0. We haven't talked about prestige in a general sense, but it's just a kind of a good thing there that we have. So one thing we wanted to talk about though is this other banner, the low crownland. It's complaining that we have low crownland. We're getting some negative tax modifiers because of that. We're getting some other modifiers like liberty, desire, and subjects, so on and so forth, right? We don't have any subjects yet. We know that Aragon has Naples as a subject, right? But we don't have any subjects. We have decided that we wanted to subjugate Navarra, though. We have a mission to subjugate Navarra, and even though we could do this ahead of time, even though we haven't done this yet, and it'll just chain into this once we finish this one, we'll be able to do this one simultaneously. So we do kind of want to actually build up try to subjugate these guys. And the thing is, we don't have to do that aggressively. They're willing to allow us to subjugate them diplomatically. We could offer a vassalization. They want to be added into our country, basically, just sort of diplomatically. So by getting the alliance, getting the royal marriage, improving the relations with them, it's actually kind of a race. I hate to say it, but Aragon's trying to do this too. Aragon's trying to do this too. We're going to try to do this quickly and get that done. So that'll be something that we'll be trying to juggle and micromanage when the game is unpaused. I'm actually almost kind of like, by looking at the rest of our situation, I'm kind of thinking the buttering up Tunis is pointless. At this point, we could send this guy back. And I don't know actually if we want to build a spy network in Morocco or if we want to build it in Tlemcen. Because Tlemcen actually, to me, looks like a country that is potentially easier to attack. Well, not easier logistically, but easier in the sense that a little bit weaker, but also because we're going to be getting free claims on Morocco. We're looking at our missions. We saw that there'll be missions to come down here and conquer some of this. So maybe we actually want to sort of do this on our own and let the missions guide us to Morocco in the future. So we'll have to think about that for a little bit. It's not going to hurt us having the spy network building in Morocco either way. This low crownland, if we click on this, it brings up the estate tab. This is the one thing we really haven't talked about. This is new with 1.3, the way that this works. And what I'll say is, if you are a brand new player to the game, this is completely ignorable. Okay, if you are a brand new player at the game, the only thing you're going to do is you're going to hit seize land, and that's it. Done. For the most part. Like, we've gotten rid of that modifier. We've gotten rid of all these negative modifiers because we are now above we're above 29.999%, right? I don't know why it works like that, but for some reason, when you start the game, sometimes you're just below 30. I think it's supposed to start at 30, but it doesn't. But for people that are interested in the estates, there's a few things we can do here. We could summon a diet, and this will actually give them all the estates more influence, give them more loyalty. Loyalty determines whether or not they're happy with us, and anything above 30% is good. Just like the Crownland. Anything above 30% is good. The influence is how powerful that country is within your country. These are like internal political factions that are trying to control your country. If they get to 100%, if the nobility ever gets to 100%, it's like bingo. They try to take over your country. It's a disaster. It's an internal disaster, and they try to take over the country. Same with the clergy. Same with the merchant guilds or the burghers. But we can give these guys, the more influence they have, the more power, though, the more they can actually give us. Like here, they're actually giving us 15% manpower recovery speed. That's partly because they have 42% influence. If they had no influence, they wouldn't give us any benefit. There'd be no, they have no influence. They have no control to benefit us, right? So we want them to have influence, but we don't want them to have too much influence, right? So we are going to try to get them more influence, and we could do that by summoning the Diet, bringing them to the court, and just letting our monarchy hear their needs and listening to them. That's going to make them feel like they have influence in the government. That's going to make them feel loyal because that's going to make them feel heard. So this is good to summon a Diet, but this does mean that we'll have to pick one of these three to help out. So let's summon a Diet. Here we go. The agenda of the Diet. So we could propose that we could follow so the clergy, the nobility, and the burghers have all given us a proposition. They've given us a proposition. So the clergy wants us to increase the base tax in Madrid. We haven't talked about developing, but if we find Madrid right here, we could see that we could try to increase, we could develop this base tax. Right now it's at 5. They want it to be 7. If we up this to 7, then we'll gain some prestige. Well, we know we got a lot of negative prestige right now, so that wouldn't be a bad thing. We'll get more loyalty with the clergy, and then if we fail this, they'll get really upset, which is fine. We're hopefully not going to be able to fail that. So this means that we would be spending a little bit of our monarch points, our technology points, our administrative power, which is incredibly precious, to bolster and develop our own country. This is called developing your own country. We can spend 54 admin points to develop Madrid. Now we have 20 years to do this, very long time. So we could totally do that. It's a matter of whether or not we care to do that in Madrid. If we care to spend administrative power that way, I think for the most part, that would be appropriate. That would be okay to be able to spend a little bit of our admin points developing Madrid over time. The other administrative points do so many different things that we'll figure out as we move forward, but spending 100 points just to work on improving our country is going to be totally fine. This is extra taxation that we'll be getting for the rest of the game, so it is going to pay out. It is going to pay out over time. Okay, here's something here where if we complete the following manpower level at least 75, oof, we already have a mission to get us to 70. We have a mission to get us to 60%. Now it's saying it wants us to get to 75%. I mean, we're so far from that right now. We're only getting 200 per month. It's going to take us like 3 or 4 years to get there now. That's if we don't even build troops. We know that we're going to be building more troops, which is going to cost us more manpower. I actually don't think we could realistically get that done, because this one, unlike the mission that we have, that's just always there that we could just do anytime we want, this, if we go to war, we fail this. So if we start a war, we actually auto-fail the manpower recovery. They're expecting us to stay at peace and build up our manpower until then. I don't like that at all. This one right here, they just want us to accumulate 700 ducats, and we can't have any loans. So we can't cheese the system, and we just get loyalty. That's terrible. We're definitely going to follow the clergy here. That's something that we can actually do. We can actually improve Madrid, and we could develop a base tax. We could spend administrative power to strengthen Madrid, and actually, basically, we're spending administrative power to set up more, to hire more people that go around and collect the taxes, to hire more taxation offices, to just sort of rezone the tax or rewrite the tax laws or whatever to get more taxation. So that's kind of the way that we can look at it, right? We're just increasing the efficiency of our taxation in Madrid by spending administrative power. Kind of makes sense, right? Military power is used for like military actions, like recruiting generals and military technology and force marching and doing other things, clearing out rebellions and stuff like that. Diplomatic power is used when sometimes doing diplomatic actions or suing for peace in a war and other things and stuff like that. So these are all relatively thematic. But they all, and diplomatic also ties into trade and production, and military ties into manpower, right? So we could actually spend, right? We could spend military points here to get, more base manpower. In fact, we could actually, what we could do is we can exploit development to get manpower back. We can actually rob these provinces of manpower by exploiting the sort of long-term benefit of having more manpower here. The interesting thing is that's a way to actually boost our manpower up. We might actually, there might be a point where we decide we might want to actually exploit our manpower in some of these provinces, because we can get 500 manpower just by clicking that button. That's kind of interesting. That's a little desperate because that is a permanent, like we are removing the strength of this province. That's not exactly the direction you want to go. You usually want to, you kind of want to go the other direction. Yeah, we'll have to see. I don't know. The manpower thing is going to be kind of an interesting thing. So now that we have the agenda going, and it's just going to be to strengthen Madrid, that's totally fine. We're good to go there. And all of these guys are happy. They're above 30. Now, we seized land from them, okay? I didn't talk about what that meant, but that lowered their loyalty. They were at about 50% loyalty. We seized land. That brings them to 30, right? 30 is totally safe. We can also see their equilibrium, though, is 42%. So even though their loyalty went down, they're still trying to get up to 42%. Their equilibrium is 42. So they're passively in a good mood, right? Even if they dip a little bit below 30%, they're likely to just bounce back up eventually. So we can see actually the equilibrium for the clergy is only 35%. It's not, or less than 35%. So they're trending downwards right now. But it's still totally safe, right? We're not worried about that. But they also have lower influence than the nobility. If we increase the clergy influence, we'll actually get more taxation modifier benefit. If we increase the influence of the burghers, we can get more trade efficiency benefit. And actually, this is super good. Manpower recovery speed, 15%. If we could get that to 20% by giving the nobility even more influence, that would be really good too. So how do we do that? We can click here to add privileges. We can give clergy some privileges. And it's very important that we look at what we're basically giving up when we do these things. So if we do the clergy land rights, okay, we are essentially giving up crownland. We just seized crownland. We don't want to give this up and go back below 29%, get all those negative effects. So we can't give away crownland right now. But if we seize more land in the future, then we can give away crownland. So these two right here, religious state and clergy land rights, we don't want to give them more land. So we don't want to hit the options that give us crownland. Remember, we can scroll down. There's other choices here. But this is obviously really monthly administrative power. Wow, that's really good. But we don't have the crownland to spend. We don't have spare crownland to spend. We need to be above 30%. Stay above 30%. Here we could do the papal emissary. We can't do this because the papal influence is not quite 20. So we have to get to 20 papal influence if we want to actually do the papal emissary. That would give us more yearly papal influence. We haven't talked about that, but the clergy and the papacy is something with the Pope, and we're a good Catholic nation, so it makes sense that we care about the going-ons of Rome, right? And as we butter up the Pope, we can get more papal influence, and we can spend this stuff to get benefits like stability or manpower recovery speed. That's interesting. So this could actually help us boost our manpower more quickly. But we need 50 papal influence. So one thing we could try to do is we could try to boost our papal influence so that we can hit this papal emissary, and we can get more yearly papal influence just permanently as we have this enacted. But right now we can't. It's grayed out. We can't do that one. Administrative cost advisor. Okay, cool. Does increase the cost of stability modifier. We haven't talked about stability really that much, but for the most part, I don't believe we're going to need to pay for stability. Right now it's 0, which is just fine. It's kind of a neutral value. If we go to the stability and expansion tab, we can see that we can boost it, but it costs 100 points to boost it. If we increase the cost, it'll cost 110 points. This is admin points. So we spend admin points, admin technology points, administrative power to boost stability. Very precious stat. That's why I don't like to hit this too often. It's very expensive, but it's very good. Having positive stability is a very good thing. So it's a little bit of a bummer. We're going to make it cost more, but I think for the most part, this is going to make our advisors significantly cheaper. Now we're only paying 0.75 ducats per month. That's good. And if we get level 2 advisors, they're even cheaper, right? So we're saving a whole ducat. If we ever hire a level 2 advisor, we're going to be saving an entire ducat. Instead of 4 ducats, it's now 3 ducats. It's pretty good. So, and that also gives them more influence and more loyalty. Right now, their loyalty equilibrium is closer to 40%, and their influence is going to go up by 10%. But I think we have to unpause the game for that to update. Because as we boost we want to boost their influence. We don't want to get them to 100%, but we want to boost their influence. Oversight of the clergy, it has no effect. It just gives them 10% more influence, 10% more loyalty. That's good. Let's do that. Influence is a good thing here. Morale of armies when at war with heretics, we get +5. -5 if at peace with heretics and heathens for 15 years. That doesn't give us any change here. The expansionist zealotry. We don't really need that much. These options down here give the clergy a monopoly. They just make them happy. We don't really need to make them happy. They're already happy, and this gives them a monopoly on these different resources. We want to control those resources. We want the government to control those resources, not the clergy. This will just give the clergy a little bit more influence here. We also talked about waiting to potentially put in the papal emissary. I think for now, we actually, yeah, we could do this. And I'm not really that concerned about the missionary maintenance costs. We're not using our missionary yet. We will need to use our missionary once we take over Granada and they have to convert those Sunni lands, right? But for now, I think we're just going to hit that button. So our equilibrium here should be... Yeah, see, this is not quite updated yet. This should be about 50%, a little bit below 50%. I think if we wait a month or something, that should update. And hopefully if we can get some papal influence, we'll be able to actually get the papal emissary, and that'll give us a little bit of a bump there. But I think we've hit most of the buttons for the clergy. This is very time-consuming. Guys, I really want to stress, all of these tabs are incredibly important. All of these tabs are incredibly important to managing your country and playing this game, except for estates. The estates are not important. We're going to go through, you're going to notice there's kind of a parallel to this. Oh, instead of administrative power, it's military power. Got it. The nobilities are the military people. The clergy are the taxation administrative people. The burghers or the merchant guilds are the diplomatic trade people, right? There's a parallel to these different things. So we're going to go in here and we can get the advisor cost one, just like the clergy one. This one's really cool though, increased levies. Let's go. We lose national tax modifier. That's not great, but 46% more national manpower modifier. Holy cow. Here's the thing, the more national manpower we have, the faster it recovers. Now, it is still going to be, the missions and stuff are still going to be proportional to our maximum pool, but this is going to increase we're going to be increasing. Now we're getting 350 per month instead of 250 per month. That is a good change. That is a good change. We want to increase levies there. Because the rate at which we gain people is based on the total amount of people that we could have at maximum. We want rights of the council. This is good. This is increasing their influence. We now have 20% manpower recovery speed. This is perfect. We don't need to give them any of these monopolies or anything. We can see their equilibrium is going to be 57%. Fantastic. Equilibrium over here is about 49%. Totally fine. Okay, so if we go to the merchant guilds now, same kind of dealio. We can actually gain prestige at the cost of, we can gain 25 prestige at the cost of some tax modifier. Well, we're making a good amount of money from tax. I don't think this is going to hurt us too badly. The yearly prestige would be nice, and the 25 prestige would get us out of that hole a little bit. I think we want this. I think that's going to help us right now. It gives us some influence and some happiness with them anyways. Where is the option for... See, some of these are grayed out. Like, we don't have enough army tradition to hit that button, but that's a good one. We just don't... Okay, there's the one for the make the cheaper advisors, which is always good. Cheaper advisors are great. This one reduces trade efficiency by 5, and it gives us 5 loans. We don't need any loans right now. We're totally fine. We don't need loans. But if we ever need a bunch of loans, 1% interest loans is way better than I think like 5% interest usually. So we can get some really cheap loans over here. This is actually really, really powerful if you ever need loans. We just don't need loans. Free enterprise is good. Exclusive trade rights, 20 local autonomy, minus 15 local development cost to centers of trade. Ooh, in this Seville, no, that's kind of good. That's kind of good if we wanted to be developing, but it does mean that there's going to be autonomy in Seville. So Seville will provide us with less oomph, but we'll be able to develop other provinces a lot cheaper in the node. That's actually really, this is a really cool button. I don't think we're going to hit it now, but I think we can hit it in the future for sure. I like this one quite a bit though. This one makes light ships cheaper, and it makes it so ship trade power is higher. It increases their influence and happiness and stuff like that. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. There we go. We've slotted, we can do 4 of each. Now we have room here to be able to slot in some of these other really good stuff as we get more land, but we have to seize land. Monthly administrative power, that'd be incredible. That would be incredible. To increase our skill here by +1, we can get 5 instead of 4. Wow, so there's 25% boost of our monthly administrative power gains. That's crazy. We don't have the 10% crown land to give this away. And it also reduces our loyalty equilibrium. Not a big deal, but there you go. So we've done the estates. The estates are done. Sorry that it took so long, but it is a very detailed and meticulous system for how little it impacts. Those are a bunch of little benefits, but that's all it is. Just little auxiliary, little perks and benefits and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, we're going to be benefiting from those things, and it is good to manage that stuff. But it is such a small part of the game. Most of the game is about reading the diplomatic ecosystem, maintaining your economy and your internal stability, and using a strong internal stability and a good diplomatic strategy to succeed and expand your country. That is what the game's about. The estates, just a small part of it, very small part of it. I'm a little bit sad that they have their own tab because it makes it seem like they're as important as the economy tab. It's not. Economy tab, way more important than the estate tab. Way more important. Okay, so we're looking pretty good. We might actually be able to pause here. What else might we want to think about? Okay, so one thing we haven't talked about, this is very nuanced, very detailed. I'm only explaining this because you guys are the crazy people that have all the DLCs. Okay, you guys have all the DLCs. If we look at our individual provinces, lots of tons of information here. Don't care about this at all, but we can see that this information is for the province itself. There's also the idea of a state, right? So this is a state, and I have a state map mode here that shows us our states, okay? We'd see our entire country as a state. This is our capital state here, which is why it's sort of a different green, but all of these are state. It says that Navarra is technically part of the state that we already have stated. So this is a province that doesn't belong to us, but is part of one of our states. But states are an area, okay, that we can actually enact specific statewide policies to these areas. We can enact edicts. Okay, we can enact edicts. And one of the things that I'm thinking about doing here is actually increasing enlistment. Now the cost of this, this increases local manpower modifier by 25%. So if we do this, we'll be able to, again, increase the manpower across the board and increase the rate at which we gain manpower significantly. And then we can retract this later to lower our maximum manpower. And then we'll be able to keep the difference, essentially. So I'm thinking about going through and actually increasing enlistment throughout our country and trying to just boost our manpower to increase the rate at which we gain manpower. The other thing we could do is we could protect trade and stuff like that. Now, the cost of this, though, unfortunately, is that it does increase the cost of the state maintenance. So right now, the state maintenance is only 0.4. And we can see that the total cost for state maintenance is 2 ducats. If we go through here and we enact this, it'll increase it by 200%. Not 100%, 200%. This will be we'll be paying 8 ducats a month to do this. That's not incredible. Usually, most of the time you don't do this. I'm just kind of feeling a little, not desperate, but I'm feeling a little desperate to potentially get a little bit more manpower. What we could try to do is we could try to find the states that have more manpower development specifically. Like this one right here is not a particularly large state. It only has a small amount of manpower, so it doesn't quite matter as much. Down here, though, we have some livestock provinces, which I'm trying to remember if this that affects supply limit. Never mind, it's not quite the same. But here, this is a large state. But presumably that actually probably just means that the cost of it is more. Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting idea to maybe try to do something like that. It's not required. But I think we're going to do this just in a few places and see how this goes, see how this feels. Yeah, it's significantly increasing our... I'm going to do this at a couple places. A couple big states, I'm just going to throw that down. It's going to cost us a little bit more per month, but we are going to be presumably increasing the amount of manpower that we can get. But we just noticed, we learned something, right? Going through the estates and everything like that, we've actually learned that the Pope is very important. The Pope is someone that we want to ally. Does the Pope like us? They have a positive opinion of us, but they don't have a friendly attitude. They're just neutral. We want to butter up the Pope. That is going to be critical. We are definitely going to want to do that. Okay, guys. We're looking pretty good to go here. I think what we could do is we could actually, we've talked about our internal, we're ready to unpause. And what we're going to try to do, let's think about our strategy when we unpause. We need the royal marriage with Aragon. We probably want the alliance with Portugal. We want the alliance with Navarre. We need to actually try to diplomatically vassalize these guys, which is going to mean it's a flurry of diplomatic actions. Alliance, royal marriage, improve relations. Because one of the requirements for this is we need to have a military alliance. Okay, great, that's fine. And then we need 190 opinion. They're only at plus 40. They're only at plus 40. So we need to get 150 more opinion. The alliance is going to give us a big chunk. You know, royal marriage will give us a big chunk, but we still are going to have to put in the work. We're going to have to put in the work and improve relations with Navarre to try to get them to boost them up as fast as we can. The Pope, though, the more the Pope likes us, the more papal influence we can get. We haven't talked about that a little bit. Right now we have only 0.18 papal influence, but we get 1.12 per year. And this is partly because we're getting a small modifier because of the Pope's opinion of us, which is 12.5%. Okay, and that's half of basically their actual literal opinion of us. We just said the max opinion is 200. So if we get the Pope to 200, that means we'll get a 100%. We could just math it, right? If we just do the math there, we'll know that we could actually boost that 12.5% up to 100%. Plus, I think there might be some little benefits to actually allying with the Pope and stuff like that. And we also talked about how the papal emissary in here will actually get us +1 per year, which would be a big boost as well. Because right now it looks like we're just getting, what, 1 as a base? Well, the base is only half, right? And we have a cardinal. So hopefully by buttering up the Pope, we might actually be able to get more cardinals. They might notice that we're a good Catholic nation and try to recruit more cardinals from our land here. So we're going to try to butter up the Pope and get the alliance there. In fact, are they willing to accept the alliance right now? Yes, they will take the alliance right now, even with a neutral attitude, because we have such a powerful army and a powerful navy, and they really respect that. And we're just a good Catholic nation. We want the ally alliance, I think, with Portugal. We want the alliance with Aragon. We want the alliance with the Papal State. We want the alliance with Navarre. Now, why don't we just get an alliance with everybody? In fact, if you go to the production interface, there's this really cool thing called the diplomacy interface, and we can actually see here that there are... Okay, well, all these countries are willing to ally us. We just don't have a diplomat that's available. All these countries are willing to ally us. Why don't we just ally all of them? Well, there's a reason for that. Vezin will ally us. Tlemcen will ally us. All of these guys will ally us. They're feeling threatened. They're feeling like they have similar common interests. There's just so many reasons why these countries want to ally us. Lots of countries up here in Germany. Lots of countries in sort of the Netherlands. And lots of countries down here in North Africa. And of course the countries in Iberia like us too. Because we're kind of a role model of the world. It makes sense. We have good diplomatic reputation. And we're a good, powerful country. And people want to be our friend. That makes sense. That's one of the good benefits of being Castile. Is you have plenty of people that want to be your friend. But here's the problem. We actually only have, we go to our own diplomacy tab. There's a number right here called diplomatic relations, 1 out of 4. Aragon's already taking one of these slots. We can only have relationships with 4 different nations. 4 different nations at a time. And that is without taking a diplomatic penalty. If we can go over this number. We could have just like tons and tons and tons of relations. We could ally all those countries, but we'd be losing diplomatic power per month based on how many we're over. So if we have 10 alliances right now, we'd be losing 6 diplomatic power per month. We'd be in the negatives. So instead of working our way towards the diplomatic technologies, we'd actually be going backwards. We'd be going backwards in terms of our understanding of the diplomatic technologies in the diplomatic world. And we'd be losing diplomatic points, which are so powerful for so many different reasons. So we don't want to disrespect this number, even though we're allowed to temporarily if we need to get like a military access with somebody or something. It's totally fine. This is totally acceptable to go over this number, but you don't want to stay over this number for a long period of time because you're just burning diplomatic power, right? You just have to know that if you're over this number, burning diplomatic power. So we don't need to get alliances with countries we don't need alliances with, right? If we can't benefit from the alliance that we're gaining, then we just don't need the alliance. And the Pope, it's mostly more of a Catholic thing. It's more of a papacy thing. It's more about having control of Rome, having control over the Curie controller, potentially, right? Being friendly with the Pope will give us more opportunity to take control of the seat and stuff like that. So playing more of a European Catholic political diplomatic game by buttering up the Pope. It's just a good thing to butter up the Pope as a Catholic nation, usually. Some benefits from that, as we've talked about. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. And the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to unpause the game and we're just going to start moving our diplomats and moving and grooving our diplomats. Because right now our diplomats have done things, right? We've done a few things with our diplomats, but they're trying to come home, right? They instantly take the action when you send them off, but it takes time for them to come home. And once they come home, then we can send them out again. So we have to let the game actually run for a few days to get these guys back at home so we can keep working with these diplomats. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I will see you guys in the next episode where we will unpause the game. We've looked at our internal situation. We've looked at our estates. We've looked at our diplomatic situation. We have a strategy. We have a core strategy in place because we've developed that by looking at our ecosystem. And we're ready to execute that on that in the next episode. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. If you have any questions, put them down below. I read all the comments, respond to 99% of them. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I will see you guys in the next one.